Hi everyone, it is Marie here from Skeins, and
Morning, guys.
and Ethan from Outlaw, and I know that we are a few minutes early, but we wanted to go a couple of minutes early just in case I didn't get the technology right.
What,
So,
you and I? Never.
I know. Look how far we've come in a week, Ethan.
I agree. You've done an amazing job. I have done nothing. I just showed up and the computer was already ready, thanks to you and Deb. So
It's just so nice to swan in like the young star that you are.
it's a
Um,
gift and a pleasure. You're welcome, everyone.
And I have to admit, today is Pajama Day,
Hmm.
and I called Jammy Day. I'm going to talk about this before we get to 11 o'clock, so then that way the real content people won't miss that. Um, the reason I called Pajama Day was because we had the favourite thing for my oldest son is to wake up on the weekend and look at me when he comes downstairs and go, "Is it a pajama day? Is it a pajama day?" Meaning it's not a school day.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, so I'm in my PJs.
Oh my
Not
goodness.
that you really see much with the top half, but look, got me.
Ooh, amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
Um,
got me doggy PJs on. Even got me fluffy slippers on.
oh my goodness. My pajamas are not fit for camera because I surprisingly sleep in very little. Um, but I
Oh,
am in sweatpants, which is a lot like pajamas.
good. Hey, now I've got D online. D, is it sounding? Deline, is it sounding all right? Flick me a quick message and let me know in the comments. Oh, look, we get comments
Oh,
pop up here and
oh my
everything. This
goodness.
is
We can see
very
everything.
technical. This
This
is
is
so
the best
exciting.
software ever.
I know, and it's free.
What?
I
Oh
know.
my God.
It's so exciting.
This is
So exciting.
incredible.
Right. So it is 11 now. It is the Quarantine Diaries, day 10.
Are you calling this the quarantine diary?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The
I'm into
Quarantine
it.
Diaries, day 10. Shows you how much you were paying attention last week. Bless you. Oh,
Look,
yes, the sound is good. Thanks, Sue. Yes, Quarantine Diaries, day 10. I can't believe this is our second weekend. Go
that's
us.
amazing. We're doing great.
I
And we
know.
still look great. Good
Oh,
job.
fabulous. Yeah.
Go
Well,
team.
yeah, and it's so it has been, yeah, it's been really full on. I've had an exceptionally busy week. I had, because of course at the end of last week I had loads of knitting done, everything. This week wee bit busier, but I'm quite determined this weekend to actually
Okay.
carve out more time for the family and knitting. And before we
Yeah, that's a good
launch into our
idea.
topic for today, I'm going to give everyone an update. I've just shown this to Ethan
Oh, it looks great
offline.
so far.
Yeah, my Rambler. So, oh,
Yeah.
hold on, and that tip's about to go west. There we go. So there we go. So I'm into well, and you can see deering, lots of deering there. I'm 2 rounds off the Noro. So I'm really looking forward to
Ooh, it's
it.
almost time
Yes.
for the Noro invasion.
Yeah. So I'm on the last round of just 2 color stranding. The next round is 3 color stranding, which is a pain in the arse.
It's not that bad. Can you do the holding two colors in the left hand and the one color in the right?
Yeah, where do, Nathan, but where do I hold my wine?
That's when you get one of those hats with the straws.
Right, that's how it works. Okay,
It really,
but look,
it
I
smooths
did
out
show
that
this
process.
even before. Oh, there we go. I'm quite proud of my floats. They're actually
Yeah,
not
I
too
think
bad.
they look great.
Yeah, not too bad. And I love grippy yarn. I love grippy
Yeah,
yarn for floats.
amen for grippy yarn.
Yeah, grippy yarn for floats is the best. So,
Honestly, sometimes I see those superwash colorwork jumpers on Ravelry,
yeah,
and my heart stops a little bit because there's no way I would survive that process because I am just too crazy. Like the
yeah,
way that those floats would sag would just make me insane.
yeah, yeah. Oh
Absolutely
gosh, I forgot to
insane.
turn. Oh, that's right. I can't turn that off because I need to hear you.
Oh,
Sorry about that. There we go.
no, okay.
Yeah, it would drive me crazy as well. And I love the fact that the grippiness that it holds itself together and does all of that. I know how I
Yeah,
can
it's
do that. I can
perfect that
turn
way.
that off, and I can turn that off, and I
Okay,
can turn that off.
absolutely.
Excellent. There we go. We're getting there. I'm going to have this technology lit before we know it. Today, though, we are here to talk about the knits and designs of Stephen West. And you and I talked about this last week, and we actually talked about Stephen a bit while we were at Unwind.
Yes.
And it's
I'm obsessed.
it's such an incredible design story, and I think he's been somebody who's been quite responsible for shaking a number of people out of their knitting funks and knitting paradigms. And
Yeah.
he's gone, and I mean, Stephen Berg, I think, has done this. I mean, that's been his whole ethos, I think, since day one. But it's taken designers like them to actually break rules and pull down boundaries and
Yes.
challenge ideas on color and shape and theme. And he is certainly one that has done it. And I think all of us have gone on a journey with him. Like, you see an evolution in
Yeah,
his
you
work.
really do. I think
Yeah,
his most recent book is aptly titled Shawl Evolution, if I remember
yeah,
correctly. And it takes some of his earliest designs all the way up to his most recent designs and shows really where he's come from. And, you know, the thing I've always really respected about Stephen is something you and I have talked about previously, the
mm,
fact that he works with techniques over and over again
mm-hmm.
and really refines them down and
Yeah,
builds them up into like different things over time. And, you know, it's so cool. I don't know if you remember his very early shawl Clockwork,
yeah, yeah,
that two color with the slip
yeah.
stitches and garter. And then he re-released it, I believe, oh God, 4 years ago now. Whoa. Whoa, everyone. We've all been knitting for a while now. Yikes. Um, 4 years ago, he re-released it in brioche
Yeah.
instead. So taking that shape of clockwork, taking that idea and updating it with a new stitch pattern.
Mm,
And I've always said to people that, you know, Stephen is a designer of either high success or high failure
yeah,
because he takes big risks, right?
yeah,
And, you know, he definitely would rather fail spectacularly than release something boring.
yeah,
And I am 100% here for that, as much as 95% of my other knitting is designed or approved by Jared Flood,
yeah,
and they
yeah. Yeah.
couldn't be
But
more polar opposites.
a lot of his earlier work, I mean, he did a lot of very traditional sweaters in that first pass of work that he did,
Yes.
really traditional sweaters. And what I love about Stephen's work, and I don't know whether I talked to you about this with you, or it might have been about Charles, but you have sometimes, as a designer, you have a body of work. And then, if you're putting a collection together, you'll often have that one item in the collection, which is that massive. Oh no, I spoke to you with this. I spoke to this with this about this with Nathan, but is
Whereas
you had
I'm
this what? Yeah,
just to be clear, everyone.
no,
Hi.
Nathan, not
Yes.
Ethan.
No, I'm
And
Ethan. The other person's
the
Nate.
other person, and you have this big show-stopping piece often in a collection. It'll
Yes.
be this wow WTF that is just like crazily insane. Oh, now my dog's getting into the knitting bag like he did
Oh,
yesterday.
good.
On your mat, buddy. There, on your mat. Um, this crazy show-stopping piece that is like, whoa, mind-blowing. But you would possibly, there will only be a minute number of people that would actually knit that in the collection. When you
Yeah,
actually go back and look how often it's been project on Ravelry, it'll be the one project that gets all the attention, all the
definitely.
all the media. It's the most Instagrammable. It's the one that gets everything there. But what its entire purpose, its entire job, is to
Is
bring you to the
people in.
collection.
Yeah.
So those other pieces that are not quite so,
And I
but are more
guarantee
knittable,
you,
more
I'm the person who's knit it. Like, I'm the
yeah,
person that one project on Ravelry is me. I'm the one that was like, this is the only thing I want from this
yeah,
collection.
yeah. And you know what? You've got to have people like you because they've got to be able to prove it in a real
Yeah,
world context. And,
totally.
yeah, and I think Stephen is a really great example of that. You see so many of his designs that you think, whoa. But then often you won't actually do it. But then you look at the rest of the collection and you think, oh gosh, that's oh, I'll try this or I'll try
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and it's and I think it's genius because what it does is it draws you all in to what you're trying to do. But there's something there. There will be something there that speaks to you. I mean, I know for me, the first time I came across his work was Spectra, and I was looking for something to knit. I had a ball of Carney rainbow yarn, and I
Oh.
was looking for something to knit.
Yeah, Spectra with those broken up sections of it is so perfect for
Yeah,
that.
and I mean, this is, obviously when Stephen was starting his fascination with short rows,
Yes.
And it was, it's a really good introduction to short rows. He hadn't started his short row wrap and turn technique
Oh,
you know,
the shortcut rows.
the
I love
shortcut row, which is
so
what he's, and I think you've got a dotted raise there, haven't you? Or a skews or one
I
of those
have
with that
a
technique in it.
I have a ooh, this is exploration station that
Yeah.
Deb made. Woo! And this is really his first kind of goodie bag
Yeah.
shawl, if you will, you know, where he stacked all of those different techniques
Yeah.
together. Now, Spectra, I have often referred to as a unicorn tamer,
Yeah.
as in you can take those crazy, carny, very loud and bright skeins and put them into a Spectra, and it
Keep
just
talking. I'm just
instantly
going to deal with the dog. Yep.
okay, and it instantly transforms them into a beautiful thing. Whereas the joy that is the beginning of Stephen's more mystery shawls, where he tends to use a lot of different techniques. Oh, there's the rest of my face. Is that it allows you to play with a variety of different yarns in one project. And, you know, something like Exploration Station, whereas Deb has made this in a very intentional, planned, thoughtful color palette that works from top to bottom. You can also break up each wedge and do this as a more scrappy project.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have small amounts of some yarns left over, or that, you know, one special skein, which we've all been saving. By the way, everyone, now is the time to save your special skeins. In case Marie
Absolutely.
and I haven't been making this clear. You can break it up into this and, you know, do different wedges and really show off all of those random little bits and bobs. And Stephen is such a big fan of promoting that.
Yeah.
And I think with these types of shawls, and Spectra actually has that same idea behind it.
Yeah.
If you take the more neutral and put it there to break it up, like in, you know, Aimee from the BNMA has that fantastically colorful dotted rays that she's kind of well known for, where it has every single wedge in a different color.
Yeah.
But she's used a consistent shade to break up the wedges. And it really shows you what you can do if you have a ton of different colors around.
Yeah.
You know? And I think someone asked, I am wearing the Orfeo cowl by Amy Vanderlaar. It is a great, great project. She's a Kiwi designer. She's based in Australia now, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she's in Melbourne, I think.
Melbourne, yes. And this guy is knit up using 2 skeins of Bohemia Sport in each color. So if you're looking for something really fun, I super, super recommend it. Also because my face is one of the featured photos on the Ravelry thing. And, you know,
I want you to now, you know what I'm going to ask you to do, don't you?
Turn it inside out. Yeah. So I am a little well known for my particular color work. So
that's the float side you're looking at there, people.
Those is that a little better with it nice and close so you can really see the floats? There we go. And it's consistent like that all the way around because I planned where I was going to trap every single float of it.
Yeah.
So I made it completely reversible just because I thought it would be really fun. And, you know, we put so much work into color work. There we go. I'm going to wear it float side out now. We put so much work into our color work that if you really finish it well like this, there's no reason not to show your floats. You know?
Right.
Why not?
Well, no, why not? True. I mean, when we talked about this, I mean, I admire your patience.
Thank you. It's a little bit of trial and error at first. Like, you definitely have to think it through. A long time ago, luckily, someone told me to mark on the chart, as I said last week, where you want to
that was
your
great
float trap.
Advice. Yeah,
so I, you know, have a pencil handy because pencils are the ultimate erasable pens. They've been around forever, folks. Never forget that. And I just stack the places where I tack the floats without putting them on top of each other directly. And it does not disturb the fabric, and you get that beautiful consistency on every repeat. And it's so worth it.
And to be fair, as we were talking about before, Grippy Yarn's been wonderful for colour work. That's in Bohemia Sport.
It is.
And Bohemia Sport, and particularly that firmer tension, you get the bloom of the possum. And one of the effects the possum does not only is give you that warmth, but it actually helps.
Yeah, once it's blocked, especially, it puffs a tiny bit. So it just makes your stitches look incredibly even.
Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
if you're someone who struggles with that sort of thing, because there's so much flexibility in the yarn while it's very grippy, with the
Yeah.
alpaca and everything,
Yeah.
you can really block it to a perfect tension from top to bottom and side to side, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Well, and actually, on that note, you have just completed a Westfields Wanderer in
I have.
Outlaw Bohemia Sport, and that is, I mean, particularly with the colours that you used and the
Ready?
marling. I mean,
Ready?
one
We'll swoop it in from side to
thing.
side because
Ooh, look at that!
it's a little big. Oh, it's a very reasonably
It's
sized shawl, everyone.
massive. Honestly, I've poor old Ethan. He got it off the needles, and he barely got the ends woven in, and it got
Oh no.
and it got sent up to me to take away. It's a whopper, and it's beautiful.
It is absolutely a joy to knit, to be
Mm.
honest. If you are looking for something, um, pardon me, if you are looking for something to knit and you can do this a lot of different ways. First of
Yeah.
all, if you download the pattern, he gives you a whole bunch of different instructions, which is another thing that, I do really love about how Stephen has evolved as a designer,
Mm.
is he has really gotten down a great way of explaining to people how to build color progressions, right?
Mm.
We've been talking about journeys and
Yeah.
color stories as, a duo who talks a lot about yarn.
Yeah.
And Stephen's projects are a great way to tell a color story.
Yeah.
And he has done a really good job of, over the years, getting better at writing out guidelines for us all of how to tell. I'm just going to wear this now, of how to tell better color stories. And this is a great example because there's a lot of different colors trapped in the marling here.
Mm.
And I've broken it up much more intentionally than what the pattern calls for by incorporating a neutral marl, actually
Yeah.
using two different shades to break up these garter ridges and to be able to make a bridge between the beautiful pinks and the bright, bright greens, which are
Mm.
not colors that necessarily play well together. Like you can't marl a pink and a green together to
No,
make one shade, but you can juxtapose them side by side.
as they
And
do in nature. Yeah.
exactly. And then I used a darker gray, our actual colorway arsenic, I'm confirming off camera with the Deb, everyone, by the way, in case you're wondering where my head's going.
She's hiding.
Um,
She refuses.
Hello.
There she is.
Deb is here. She's here. She's knitting. Life is good.
Have you poured breakfast bourbon yet?
No, we'll get there.
Tomorrow.
Oh, very good.
But so what he's done is, if you're someone who's a little more timid about color play, is he's written out at the beginning very easily a list of all of the colors that you require to make the project. And then throughout it, he gives you different ways to stack them together in each section. And the shawl's broken up into 5 larger sections, really, when you
Yeah.
look at it. And it's a very helpful way if you've got a big stash at home with lots of different colors in it. You can really dig through what you've got and build the color story for this. And
Yeah.
it is a soothing, soothing knit. Now,
Yeah.
Stephen is a big fan of garter.
Yeah.
I think we can all
So
agree to
am
that.
I love garter.
I think we all love garter. It's kind of I assume it's the first thing most of us learn how to
Yeah.
knit.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. And the nice part about this is, as you identified, he started using those much easier to work short rows.
Mm.
And he has 2 or 3 different techniques of them called
Yeah.
shortcut rows that make them so, so easy to follow. And
Yeah.
with this project, what he has really done is he's revisited a lot of his favorite themes. So there's
Yeah.
incorporated I-cord,
Yep.
there's
Feather and fan.
feather and fan lace, exactly, and lots of garter stitch. And
Mm.
you make the whole bottom band of the garter stitch short rows first.
Yep.
And it takes a little bit of time, but it's a project that's very easy to pick up and put down. So if you're
Yeah.
going to be interrupted throughout your day, or if you want to take a break and work through it as you go, this is a perfect project, especially if we're all doing a little bit of extra TV watching
Mm-hmm.
over the next little while. This is a perfect TV project. You
Yeah.
don't have to look at it. And the only difficult part is picking up the stitches along the back of this I-cord. But
Yeah.
because of the way you build the I-cord on the edges, it's actually incredibly easy to pick up the precise number of stitches
Yeah.
exactly where you want to be.
Well, that I-cord edging, that was the first time I ever came across that was in his doodler.
Oh yeah, the doodler is awesome.
Is the doodler? Oh, I put the wrong way around. This is my doodler here, and I love this for so many reasons. One is that I-cord edging. It's the first time I'd actually done it. I'd sort of seen it around, but it was, I mean, just the tidiness that you create
Yeah,
on
exactly.
the edging is just so good. Now that's actually the bind off, I think, there, but the where is the beginning of this? Yeah, here it is, up here. And it is just it just creates this beauty. It's almost like, when you're a kid and you like to draw the marker around something to clearly to define it.
Exactly.
And that's what he's gone and done. And I mean, so this one, I mean, obviously was a mystery knit along, but as you can see, I mean, it was right when he was in that full wedge sort of period. I tried to, and also again, what I love about this too, when he would do these mystery knit alongs, he would be very, very clear around how to select your colors in terms of to get a result. And so I know for me, I have what I have in there is a grey sock yarn. Camera, there we go. Just a plain grey sock yarn, and I just wanted to have that piece because I wanted the other two yarns to be
more semi-solids to really shine.
Yeah, so I had this Noro.
Wait, you had Noro? I'm funny, everyone. You're welcome. No.
Yes, my love of Noro is very well documented. So I had this Noro there, and I just punched it all up so you could see those colours. And it's like when it was, and I mean, of course, you had this beautiful pop of orange here, and the temptation for me was to pull out that, but then I knew that if I did that, it would actually, in a way, diminish it. So I ended up pulling out the maroon with that at the end, and this was so much fun. I really enjoyed knitting this.
Everyone I've heard who's knit it loved it.
Yeah, I
loved
really
the process
enjoyed
of
it.
knitting it.
Yeah, it was and again, as you said, there's that sort of those waves, that sort of feather and fan style of wave at the bottom, and also too the breaking things up with those contrasted rows in between to break those wedges up.
So great.
Yeah, and it is part of a journey. You sort of see from this to what you're wearing. But then the other thing I'm really enjoying as well is he's obviously been paying a lot of attention to colour blocking. I'm wondering whether he's been looking at a lot of design, particularly from the late 80s and early 90s. And I'm seeing some of those elements come through. I think there was the Monsieur Plastique sweater.
One sleeve. Oh.
So and if you haven't seen that, guys, it's a grey sweater with this blue colour band that runs across and down the arm. It's just a block of colour. I mean, you need to knit that because you would look
in the queue.
In that.
It's in the queue. I have already picked the colors for it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I'm just working on another Stephen West sweater right now, so I'm going to finish this row before I show it off. But speaking of color blocking and all of those different techniques, the most recent mystery knit along that I participated in was, of course, the Starflake. And I have to say, while I frequently love his mystery knit along shawls, I think this one is my favorite of the mystery shawls so far. It is a definite like Stephen West kitchen sink grab bag shawl, which for me personally, as a knitter who has no technical restraints whatsoever, because I can do pretty much anything. I love this kind of knitting. It's really, really fun. But with this shawl, what he did that is genius, if you're a knitter who is a little more reserved with how you like to approach things, is he incorporated kind of an easy version using more garter stitch and no brioche, as well as this more complex version. And you get the same visual effect, which is really, really smart.
Yeah.
And the color blocking on this shawl is what makes it so fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it works with our, really great commercially dyed yarns that are a solid color, as opposed to needing a huge access to a massive stash of more hand dyed yarns, which sometimes we do have big stashes of it. I personally don't. So sometimes with these mystery knit-alongs, I actually struggle a little bit.
Mm,
So it was really nice to see something that emphasized more solid colors and
mm,
really played with that whole color blocking theory. And
mm.
I knit this guy in Baby Bandit.
Oh,
Um,
gorgeous.
and it turned out just so wonderful. That merino 4-ply construction with that nice gentle twist to it is just great for shawls because
Yeah,
there's no rubbing or friction that happens, so it doesn't pill at all, really.
yeah,
And it was $66 all in to make this shawl because it
yeah,
only takes 6 balls, 3 of each color.
yeah.
And you can't go wrong for that,
No,
you
no,
know?
and the colors are so striking. I mean, you've actually, for you, done quite muted colors.
Thank you. I tried.
I know, but it's the it's and there's the having that color blocking there, but also
Yeah,
as you said, making things approachable for people. I mean, here is
exactly.
and I can't think there's a couple of other shawls that he's had, which I think Exploration Station might have been one of them. Often when there's a brioche, I think there is a brioche
Yes,
section in there,
there
is there
is the
not?
brioche and exploration station.
Yeah, and I remember from there is actually he'll say if you don't want to do the brioche, you can, I think do a ribbing or whatever it
Yeah,
can be. And I think it's just making it easy and having the ability to be able to have these wonderful projects. And we'll actually jump down. I've got a question for that later to dig out those stash items, those weird and wonderful little unicorn skeins, and
yes.
bring them all together. But from you and I, from our perspective, both working with commercially produced yarns, having
Mhm.
that color blocking, I know for me, his current collection, using those sort of color blocking, the other one that I've actually really fallen in love with and I whacked in my queue straight away, was the bubble cow.
Oh, I love the bubble cowl.
Yeah, the bubble cow for
I
me was one. Again, you could actually use lots of those little fiddly bits and pieces, but he's gone and used that La Bename merino, which is just gorgeous.
it
I
is
mean, we have merinos similar to that as well. I mean, we've got our Albertine, but I mean, the Bohemia worsted would be perfect for this, and
yeah. And if
particularly
you
to,
were
I mean,
looking
they,
for some moodier shades,
yeah,
throw in
and
some
that's just
faux
it. I'm going to
dookie.
actually, I'm just going to copy this and pop it in the chat for people. I'm getting so good at this. I'm really super proud of myself because I'm just not technically
I
minded,
am
and
very proud of you because I have no idea what you're doing and it looks great.
it's very exciting. And that particular bubble cow, as you said, with those moody colours, because that's one of the things that Deb is utterly genius on,
Oh my God,
is the ability to pull a collection together that is both cohesive, but
hmm
also to provides a whole variety of options between
totally.
complementary and contrasting colours. And that's no mean feat. It's a difficult thing to do.
I agree completely. I kind of have an idea in my head for those of you at home who are really familiar with the Outlaw Bohemia worsted colors of doing like a Merlin and Troy and Nostalgia and Fog sort
Mm-hmm.
of one in like a repeating stripe
So
situation with
that's
just
sort of
these
for those out there. It's like a dark, very dark purple,
dark blue for the
blue, or dark
Merlin,
blue, the gold, very rich
yeah, the
gold,
gold for the Troy, and
and
then
light
the dark
grey,
red and
and the
light
dark
gray.
red. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think would just be smashing.
Mm.
But
Mm.
hmm,
Very heraldic that would be.
yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
it's and so anyway, the bubble cowl is one with that blocks of color, but he's also been exploring one of the blocks of color items, and I'm actually going to talk about it in a quarantine diary probably later on, is a color block blanket project that I love. When I
ooh,
cover off blankets, is log cabin, which is taken from quilting, and
yes.
the Mason Dixon girls did a knitting version of that. And Stephen, I think, has gone and taken inspiration from that again, and he's done a triangular
Would
version of
you
that amongst a number of
would
projects.
you like to see a version of that? Would
Yeah,
that
I think I would.
be helpful? Okay. Thankfully, as per usual, one second, let me summon a sample. Thankfully, I happen to have one of these handily knitted by Deb in Little Bandit, one of those natural grippy
All the
yarns,
ends beautifully woven in.
beautifully woven in.
I only just finished it.
It's we're calling it experimentally fringed. You're welcome, everyone. If you too want to experiment with some fringing, but yes, so this has that exact idea that you're talking about.
Yeah,
I would call this a mitered log cabin approach to make a
yeah,
triangular shape. It's really, really cool. Deb kind of knit this while knitting 17 other things and really pounded through it in all honesty. It did not take that long. except for the bind off, which is entirely worthwhile to get that graphic,
Yeah.
gorgeous striped effect that you also see on the bottom of the, here we go.
Yeah.
That's the bottom edge. You also see it more subtly
Mm.
done on the bottom of this guy, which is just a 2-color I-cord bind off for everybody at home, where you work 2 rows of the I-cord bind off in one color and then drop it and pick up the next one.
Yeah.
The yarns carry automatically, so you don't have to twist them together or anything because the ends get trapped inside of the I-cord, so there's no need for any sort of fancy twisting or other work like that. You just pick up and go as you go. But I really, really am in love with this one.
Mhm.
And, you're saying that log cabin sort of quilting idea, which I fully agree with.
Mm.
And I actually think, as we've been talking about, that this would be a perfect project for all of those scraps and random
Oh,
ends because
absolutely.
the wedges get progressively longer. And
Yeah.
we all tend to have more amounts of neutrals in our stash than we do brights. I think that's the fair, except for possibly me. Some of my collection looks like it was purchased on acid. Um, Sorry to everyone, I have a disturbingly large stash of hedgehog fiber. Um, it's aggressive. But what would be great about this one is you can start in the center and use those brighter skeins and
Yeah.
alternate with the more muted tones and really build out so that you end up with maybe like a bright multicolored center with a big neutral edge
Yeah.
and then picking some light and dark choices, doing a
Mm.
really graphic bind off on it, I
Yeah.
think would be a fantastic choice
I
to bring
mean,
that all together.
the white and black bind off on that is
Hmm.
utterly, utterly genius. I mean, it's so, I mean, honestly, the colors for that to me just takes me right back to sort of early high school, mid 80s. We're showing our age now, Deb. Early high school, mid 80s, well before you were a twinkle in anybody's eye, Ethan. But those, it's that, it's like, to me, it's very comforting and nostalgic and fun.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah, I love
I
it. Love
really
it.
love it. And to be clear, I actually built this palette to be comforting and nostalgic for that kind of like early 2000s aggressive futurism that was happening. I
Yep.
don't know if you
Yep.
remember that time period when people were like, we're never going to repeat fashion again. And people went a little crazy with all the metallic fabrics for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Please, I'm so glad that there are very few photos of me from that time period. I wore a lot of metallic eyeshadow. It was not great. Um, But I think that, when you look at this sort of color
Yeah.
blocking, if it is something that you guys want to play with and get started on,
Mm.
Karen Templar from Fringe Association, Fringe
Mhm.
and Friends, she has a great free pattern online that is more of a recipe for making a fingerless mitt, a log cabin
Oh,
fingerless mitt. So if you had a stash of stuff and you wanted to play with either the log cabin blanket idea from
yeah.
Mason Dixon Knitting or the triangulate shawl, but you
Yeah.
wanted to test out the colors first on a smaller item, I think that her log cabin fingerless mitts would be a great place to start.
Oh,
And they're knit modularly, so there's no seams, everyone's favorite.
perfect.
And it's all in garter stitch, just like this guy. You
Oh,
guys,
that's a great project because that's a project that, because we've been talking about people using up little bits of stash and things that they've got at
mhm,
home. And that's the sort of project that would be ideal. That's the sort of project when you have done, say, something like the Westfield Wanderer and you've got little bits of something left over and
and
you
you
think,
do.
oh, what am I going to knit with that? You could probably,
Whip
you
off
know,
a pair of coordinating fingerless mitts.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
best part, I always find, like, I am a bigger fan of more neutral, larger garments,
yeah.
usually, and of doing really bright and aggressive accessories. I think it's a great way to mix up your knitting and to really show a variety of looks inside of your wardrobe. And, a small amount of bright or really mixed color
Yeah.
can pretty much work with anything. It almost becomes what I like to refer to as neon neutral.
Yeah.
Um, so I really encourage people to really go aggressive
Yeah.
with those bright, bright colors on smaller projects.
Yes.
So, you know, tiny little mitts that are just going to sing with a bright,
Mm.
fresh palette,
Yeah.
especially going into, the autumn and the
Mm.
winter and maybe wanting a little bit of fun going on in your life.
Yeah.
I think it's a great choice. And there is one other, I don't have a sample of it, unfortunately. I know. But if people are looking for another way to play with this whole idea that we're talking about, his boardwalk shawl, which is
Okay, I'll pull that up.
another, yep, it's two colors. It's mostly garter stitch again, has a beautiful border on it. Would be another great place. And also the photography on this one and art direction is especially fantastic, I think. It would be another great one to play with that kind of like, I'm really into using the intelligent way of using simple techniques.
Yeah.
So using lots of garter stitch in an interesting way, I think is so, so cool compared with having to do all of the usual, kind of trapeze artist knitting that I tend to engage in.
So boardwalk, was it?
Yes, the boardwalk shawl. Unless I've completely lost it, everyone, which could happen. You never know. It's from a more recent release of his, because he normally does several little kind of mini collections throughout the year. And I would say this most recent release of
Oh,
collection.
well, yeah, in the yellow and the white.
Yeah, that's the
One?
exact one.
Wow. Yeah, okay, I've got it here. Found it, my friends. I found it.
Yes, he has so many patterns, everyone, that sometimes things unintentionally get a little lost when we're talking about
Yeah,
Stephen.
it was it's 7 pages on Ravelry. Like I've just, it's
Yeah,
massive. Yeah.
he's a
He is
pretty.
quite prolific.
Yes, he is prolific. I think it's partially because of his really smart way of using, you know, evolutions of the same technique.
Yeah.
And I think that it enables him to write and release patterns. And because he has such a bold color sense, I will say, as someone who does designing, I have a few things up on Ravelry if anyone's really bored. And you need fingerless mitts that have an aggressive cable on them, please go check them out. Um, but the different things that you're seeing from him, I think, come from that sense of boldness and bravery. And
Yeah.
it allows him to just release these things that, do really push a lot like Stephen Berg has, a lot like Stephen West
Mm,
has, even designers, as we both talked about, Nora Gone, who
mm.
really definitely
Oh,
pushed,
Oregon. Yeah.
but like, she has pushed the boundaries of what should be possible with knitting,
Yeah.
that now I think sometimes it's easy to forget that we take a lot of cabling and tessellation of shapes and, the actual manipulation of fabric in
Yeah.
knitting for granted, that, were things that Nora Gone and even before her, the great and wonderful Elizabeth Zimmerman
Mm,
really started a long time ago.
mm.
And they are people who are confident and bold and interesting in what they've always released. And I love that.
And it is, and that's the thing. You need the people. You need those trend setters. You
Yeah.
need those people to actually push those boundaries. So
Right?
you don't need to be out on the boundary with them, but you can actually certainly cruise along in the wake for the ride.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
goodness.
yeah, I know. And Stephen, I know, having spent a lot of time with Stephen Berg, is something
Hmm.
that he talks about a lot. I mean, he's gone, very. I mean, he's got sweaters that he has knitted in cassette tape and used all these different things, and he's been quite extreme about a lot of the things that he's done. But at the same token, as he said, it's about. Pardon?
Cassette tape.
Have you not seen his cassette tape sweater?
No, I'm going to have to look it up when we're done. That sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah, no, he has knitted a sweater using cassette tape.
That's a
He
very like Habu textile approach.
Yeah, well, no, but and that's just. I mean, he's got another sweater that actually uses, the cord that you get. Well, I mean, if you do garden work and you have like a weed eater or a weed whacker, he's got
Yeah,
another one that knits that cord
of course he does.
into.
That man is a menace. I love it.
Yeah, and he's gone and done that. But see, the thing is that it pushes those boundaries out there. And you may
Yeah.
not want to go to that extreme, but as you said, you may have that one skein of really bright neon coloured something, and you
Hmm.
might just want to pop that little pop of colour in there just to go, yes, I can do it, or just
Yeah,
to give it a zing or brighten it up, or
I
and I
agree.
mean, I've actually got I'll bring out on another Quarantine Diaries. I have got some old homespun that I found in part of my home spinning journey.
Wow.
I'm not a prolific spinner by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank
I
you.
don't spin to create yarn. I don't need to do that. I work as part of a mill that does that. I spin because I spin for stress. And those who
Okay.
are hand spinners on here, and I know there are a few in chat at the minute, that the actual act of spinning for me, I find incredibly therapeutic. So
Yeah.
that's why I do it. And I
No.
stumbled across this time last year actually, some homespun. So small skeins. I'd only done like a bobbin or two of something, or part bobbins of something, or where I've pulled the wheel out
Yeah.
and just, whacked off half a bobbin when I'm feeling particularly ragged. And I found all these little part bobbins, and I needed to actually free bobbins up. And so I plied them all off. So I ended up with a mixture of some mild and some plain, and they're all sort of natural homespun style yarns.
Cool.
And I had just enough to do the smallest little pair of fingerless mitts for my big hands, but I had some bright neon merino, which I then sort of sewed through, because one of the
Oh,
yarns on
cool.
one of them was a bit, so I thought,
Yeah.
well, I may as well accentuate that instead of trying to hide it. And it
Lean
does.
into the skid, right?
Yeah, it just does that. So if you were, I'm going to put you on the spot now, because you know these a lot more than others. If you were to pick your top pick for a project, a Stephen West project, if you have got lots of little bits and pieces that you think you want to pull together collaboratively, what will it be?
Mhm. Probably that good old classic dotted rays.
Yeah.
It's a lot of very small wedges overall. There are more small wedges in it than larger wedges. Plus, it has the opportunity for lots of striping. And because it is garter stitch in eyelets, it breaks up the yarn on its own. So you don't have to do as much work with a shawl like that, because it's an all over texture visually, and it creates that swoop shape that he explores in the
Yeah.
doodler as well. I think that it is an absolute perfect pick for that,
Right.
personally, because it's what I would describe as semi-modular,
Yep.
because you're building it with short rows as you go. So you're building out in chunks and wedges to
Yeah.
make that sort of a shape. And I have seen so many what I would call surprisingly beautiful dotted rays shawls. Because I've definitely seen some, like, I know someone who has taken 7 different balls of Noro
Whoa.
and knit
Who is
one.
this person? Where have they been all my life?
Yeah, she is fantastic. She also dyes gradient cake. She's crazy. But she took 7 different uh, colorways of Noro in the Silk Garden, and she actually planned all of the pooling by knitting test swatches in each of them, which is just way too much work for me. I'm not going to lie to anyone here. But it means that hers actually has vertical stripes in the Noro of contrasting colors
Wow.
across all of the wedges. It's really, really neat. The other one that I would, and I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say two. If you have more DK weight in your stash than
Yeah.
fingering weight, I would, and you're an adventurous knitter who's not afraid of brioche, I would recommend the brioche chevron cowl. You can make
Oh.
it as a scarf or a cowl. I
Yeah.
have made one that I really love, using some of my own hand dyed and a bunch of custom colorways from Madeline Tosh, that they dyed up for me. And the main color is their neon classic Edison bulb. And I really, really love the way that the chevron shapes allow you to build stripes.
Yeah.
So you can do a lot of striping and a lot of different things with it without needing to have a huge amount of any one color, because a single band of striping is
Yeah.
so easy to work in
Yeah.
brioche, because you
Yeah.
just work 2 rows and then drop it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those
Yeah. I
would
mean,
be
that's
my
the
2
one
picks.
advantage. I mean, if you're a fan of stripes, I mean, brioche it's all it is built on those stripes. Yeah, for sure.
And if you have a tiny, tiny amount of yarn and either a worsted weight, the excuse me hat, which is kind of a there we go, which is kind of a classic Stephen West pattern. I
Mm.
believe this is the first from the Excuse Me collection, and they all have this. I'm gonna get better at doing this next week, guys. They all have this common swoop to them
Yeah,
that
but
creates that
I
slight
love that.
asymmetry.
I love it. I love the swoop.
And what's nice is it's reversible. And what I actually did is I switched to one color brioche at the crown, which on mm, mm, mm. There we go.
Ooh.
Whoop, there we go. Which on this one makes it a really visible little pop of color right at the top. And, you know, it has that great edge that swoops up and over when you flip it up.
Yeah.
And I really love this pattern. I think I've made 4 or 5 of these in total now. This is
Wow.
Deb's, and it's in Bohemia worsted.
So that would just be one ball of each color, wouldn't it?
You can actually, I worked out, get 2 full-size hats
Out of
out
two balls.
out of 2 balls. So if you have
Wow.
1 ball of each color, and you could flip them and reverse them around.
Yeah.
Mine, which was tragically abandoned at the warehouse, not to be rediscovered for a little bit still, is in the same background color, our deeper gray here called ebony, and in the pale, pale pink enchanted. And Deb's is in the same ball of ebony and marigold, which is our orange. And so I would totally recommend that. I intend to make an entire family's worth of hats for everyone here as part of my quarantine knitting.
I was just going to say, if she wore that hat sitting on that couch, she'd blend in, wouldn't
Yes,
she?
she does. Deb is getting ready to camouflage herself at any
Oh,
moment.
no, I can see it
So
now.
look
Now
out,
people walk
folks.
in and go, have you seen Deb? And she's sitting in a chair, absolutely still, hoping like hell.
You'll never see her coming, everyone. She has a plan for every room now. She's picked her outfit and she's gone.
Right, now I have here we go. Camilla has asked, where can I find the black and white bind off? I love it. Now, was that part? It is part of the pattern, isn't it?
It is part of the pattern, but there are lots of really helpful tutorials online for the I-cord bind off. You know, all you do to make the 2-color one, Camilla, is, and everyone else, is alternate. So you work 2 rows in color A and then 2 rows in color B. Now, if you're going to do this and you want a seamless edge all the way around the garment, what you're going to do is cast on the stitches for your I-cord bind off, we'll get this out eventually, provisionally, and work 2 rows of I-cord before you attach it to the shawl by using that slip knit at the end.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do one more time, cast on provisionally, work 2 rows in color A and join it with color B. And then when you work all the way around and come back to it at the end of binding off whatever object you're binding off, undo that provisional cast on and just Kitchener stitch it together. And you have a seamless bind off all the way around.
Fantastic. Now, if anyone else is in there and has any questions for either Ethan or I, more Ethan, because he knows more of these things than I do, pop them in now. What have you got on the needles? You're sitting there knitting away. What's on there at the minute?
So I am making what at the moment looks like the world's most fabulous Dickie. I'm going to take this, going to shed one Stephen West project to put on another. So part of my quarantine knitting challenge to myself has been to make something that I would never normally make. So I jumped in on the extra texture sweater, which is not in my usual sweater wheelhouse. So this is a large...
Oh, this is the one that's really, really wide. Is that the one?
This is the giant saddle shoulder square one. So I have both shoulders and the collar complete already. Boom, boom. And I am worked down the front and put the front on a hold on one cable. And I am now finishing up this back section in this all over beautiful cabled texture. Now you'll notice that there is a slight variegation in mine. It's because I am holding yarns double, just like the pattern suggests. However, instead of using a mohair and a DK weight yarn, I am holding 2 sport weight yarns together. Bohemia Sport, so I'm still getting that fluff and beautiful textural effect from it in the colorway Tarnished, and Little Bandit in the color Adventure.
Oh, that's genius.
So you get lots of structure, so you still see the beautiful cabling.
Yeah.
You can really see it here in the shoulder as well, where it's well supported.
And the Bohemia Sport would just, as you said, give it a beautiful little
just a tiny bit of haze, and it's just so soft. And it creates, because the colors are very similar. But because they're just tonally different, it creates a beautiful semi-solid effect. And what I'm actually going to do, because I want to turn this into a real showpiece, showstopper, is I'm going to work down to the bottom of the underarm, which I'm almost at. I only have 2 more repeats on this back section to go before I get there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin to fade it from these two, which are the blues that I'm working with, which are the blue. I'm
Yeah.
gonna get this by next week. I promise. Everyone, I'm gonna have a practice session just learning how to use the camera. Don't worry, it'll be much less nauseating. I'm going to fade from these blues
Yeah.
out to these two natural
Yeah.
neutral.
That'll be
And
fantastic.
I think, yeah, and I think that there's a lot of different ways to work a fade in a bigger textured garment like
Mm.
this. I'm a big fan of the idea of going from a dark to a bright as
Mm.
well. If you're making something that is such a large canvas, such as the extra texture sweater, which is
Mm.
intentionally very, very oversized, if you
Mm.
wish it to be that way, you can also knit it with less ease, of course.
Mhm.
Do what's going to work for your wardrobe. But I kind of just wanted a giant house sweater, if you will,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be really warm in.
Yeah, but if you did that and you're breaking it down to those neutrals, then
Yeah,
if you're putting it on with a pair of like white jeans or cream colored trousers or chinos or something like that, what it
yeah,
does is because your block of color is here, it draws all the attention to your face
that was
and
kind of the plan. I
yeah,
was just hoping to really have a fun play and not be so worried about the practicality of a garment for once,
yeah.
because I primarily wear jumpers all the time.
Mm.
If you know me, you know this.
Mhm.
Summer is a challenging season for me. I get very bitter for a little while. And so I tend to, really knit things that are practical. Sorry, guys, this is just going to be a revolving door of what shawl I'm wearing apparently today because I've changed my mind again. Um, and, I think that it's really, really important that you kind of know your style as a knitter, not that you
Yeah,
necessarily knit for trends.
yeah,
But, we've got this time to play with right now,
yeah,
and all of these really fun patterns out there that are different,
yeah.
And so I am staying away from safer pattern choices at the moment. You might remember that Yishu sweater I was working
Yeah,
on at
yeah.
Unwind. So I've got that one all finished up. It turned out to be so much fun that I thought that
Mm.
launching in on this texture time adventure, or sorry, extra texture, sorry, everyone, while I love Stephen dearly and many of his patterns, some of them do have very similar names. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, texture time, extra texture, I think that there's another one too that has texture in
Yeah,
the title.
there is. I've seen it. There's a few.
Yeah, so I'm sorry if I throw any of you off. I'm not trying to intentionally, but I just thought it would be a really fun chance to play around with some of the yarns I had with me and to really just give a go at some big fun projects. Now, the one thing I do want to tell everybody, if you're working and you decide to cast on this big beauty, um, the biggest thing to remember is because you are working a very large cable, it's an 8-stitch cable, over the course of a big piece of fabric, and the cable is oscillating. So you go from cabling front to cabling back, and they are not vertically stacked on top of each other. It takes quite a bit of fabric for the cabling to show through the way that it does on the pattern and on this basically extra large swatch that I have here for you. So if you decide to cast this on at home and you're knitting through, I have a pretty good example of it because I can show you the back where, as you can see, the, there we go, the cable pattern hasn't really bloomed yet.
Hmm.
So I don't want you to be concerned at all if you decide to cast this on. Work through the pattern
Yeah,
as it's written, and it takes 2 to 3 repeats of the cable for it to really become clear. So
yeah.
don't worry, your pattern is working just as it should. If it just looks like little tucks and folds for the
Mm.
first little while, it blooms into that beautiful almost V shape that you
Mhm.
see on the samples after 2 to 3 repeats.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things. I don't know if I have any other really great advice. If you have like a single skein of a very bright unicorny sort of thing out
Mm.
there that you haven't used, there are a lot of really awesome double knit and or two fold. So you knit an outside and then
Yeah,
an
together.
inside
Yeah.
of hats out there. I know that the Oslo hat from Petite Knits has been really popular for that. There's some ribbed ones that are great. those are a great other way to use those up. And, hat knitting is really, really fun for TV time because you can just
Yeah.
knit endless stockinette and stare straight ahead, which is, why I've knit. Oh, ready for this? I have
Ooh.
finished a sock.
Oh, yeah.
I
Mm.
know. I know. And what's even more amazing, everyone, is I've already cast on the second one. Mind blowing.
So there is potentially socks.
Yeah, there will possibly be socks, not just many sock.
Sock.
Because, I think we can all admit to having many sock and not a lot of socks in our lives as knitters. I am overcoming second sock syndrome during this time. 1 centimeter at a time.
Very well. See, my displeasure at knitting socks is well known.
Yes.
People that follow me, I don't like.
Deb would also like everyone to know that she too finds a great deal of displeasure at knitting socks. I am not going to sit here and pretend like I love knitting socks, everyone, because that is a blatant lie. But I really love wearing hand knit socks, like a lot. And
same.
I am willing to suffer for the things I like. It turns out, I will knit like a swath of stockinette and fold it 12 times and seam it. I'm looking at you, Julie Hoover, to get something I want. Everyone, if you're not familiar with the incredible work of Julie Hoover, we'll talk probably about that next time.
We can do that next Saturday, next pajama party day.
Next Saturday, but go take a look at it and you'll understand what I mean by my joke of knit a stockinette and seam it, because girl does some amazing things with stockinette, but it's a lot. It's a lot of knitting sometimes.
Well, I think we have covered off an absolute trove of information, and it's been, and it is so good. Jeanette, I loves knitting socks. That's good, Jeanette, because I know that if I ever need any more socks, I can also.
Yeah, Jeanette, if you'll give your contact details to Marie, I can provide you with my address. I am a men's US 9.
Yeah,
I accept sock deliveries.
Care of Outlaw HQ that you'll get them.
Exactly. Send them through.
So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And I'm so proud of us, Ethan, that we have managed to get this technology working.
Technology geniuses.
Yay, which also means, because later this week, I'm also catching up with Susie Brown on Monday. Susie Brown from the wonderful Tiny Studio magazine. So we're going to be talking to her about the magazine and the industry and things like that. I'm also hoping to catch up with Stephen Berg and also Nathan Taylor. I've spoken to them and they're very keen to come and catch you. And of course, the Saturday Pajama Party here with Ethan and I will continue. So until then, have a great weekend, everybody. I enjoy your knitting, and I will see you again tomorrow, and I will talk to you again during the week, Ethan. So thank you, everyone.
Talk to you soon. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.